Lord of life is my shepherd. He leads me with nothing to want, and he leads me along with his staff and his rod. He is here to comfort my fears. Though I walk through the valley, I walk with his hand in mine. I thought I passed my last breath in the shadows of death, but I'm still here, safe on the other side. Here with the waters beside, cool in the grasses I lie. Here with my Lord, who gently restores. He's the shepherd of life. There's a table laid out before me. There's a cup in which joy overflows. Surely goodness and love will follow me all of the days, all the days of my life. Here with the waters beside, cool in the grasses I lie. Here with my Lord, who gently restores and leads me back. Here with the waters beside, cool in the grasses I lie. Here with my Lord. Here with my Lord, who gently restores. He is the shepherd of life.
Hey folks, welcome to episode 2 of my conversation with singer, songwriter, and author Steve Bell. That was just Steve singing a moment ago, a tune called Shepherd of Life, which is like the song he did before the first episode from his first album, Comfort My People. Now, if you haven't seen episode 1, I suggest you go back and check it out. It contains a fuller explanation at the front end of what this whole little project's about. But in this episode, Steve and I sort of poke around in the idea that the things we make, whether that's words or symbols or liturgies, point towards something profound and mysterious, but are not the thing itself. It's an episode that I've decided to call When a Fish Isn't a Fish. Good. Do you feel like you could put your finger on characteristics of some of those traditions that point to their origins, that are sort of like they're in their DNA, they're part of their fingerprint, things that about them that say we came from a place of suffering and we can help be a port or a boat in a storm in your suffering?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, I mean, when you think about, say, I mean, I grew up in sort of a Baptist tradition, and a pastor would get up every Sunday to sort of explain what the problem is and give us our answers. Right. I mean, that's really basically what they did, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas with the liturgy, there is a sense about the fact that it's pretty much incomprehensible. That's actually its gift. It solves nothing. It directly addresses very little in terms of our day-to-day stuff. Like, it seems out of the mundane. There seems to be something about it that transcends the mundane. But it uses the mundane. It uses speech. It uses bells. It uses taste and smell and touch and sight and like in all these different things. It assaults all of our senses, engages all these things, but it uses those things to engage a mystery, and a mystery is something to be absorbed by, not something to be solved. A mystery, you know, in our modern parlance, we think of a mystery as a problem to be solved. You know, so Sherlock Holmes basically demystifies the mystery, and that's why he's the hero. Where the liturgy and some of these traditions have it's not the agenda to demystify. In fact, it's more to help you kind of, in a sense, soak in it or rest in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I just I'm thinking,
like Jesus in the boat, right? Like, you know, everybody else is freaking out. And he's like, you know, like there's
yes.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah,
like,
it's not blithe. It's not blithe. It's not unaware of the storm, but it's a place of rest, not a place of naivete. Well, unless it's chosen naivete, but that's a different topic,
right? Yeah,
right? But we're not being called by these ancient practices to be ignorant of the storm or to pretend it doesn't exist or to make sort of spurious claims about how God's going to, you know, fix it all.
Right.
But rather to just soak in the mystery that Jesus called love. Yeah. In the midst of these things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the minute you try to use it to solve the problem, whatever the problem is, it ceases to function.
Yeah.
It was never for that. But the fact that these traditions sort of developed in seasons like ours is, I think probably one of the reasons why they resonate so much. And you look at the younger generation right now that is far less interested in sort of nailing things down and you know, open to the mystery of things. You see that there's a much greater appetite for ancient practices. And I find that fascinating, actually, and encouraging.
I was reading an article yesterday in the BBC. I think the headline was something about when did relaxation become an art form, and just talking about the new acronym. Instead of fear of missing out, instead of FOMO, it's JOMO. It's the joy of missing out.
Lovely,
right? There's this attraction to stopping, to pausing, to being still, to resting instead of this frantic scramble to make sure I don't miss anything in a world where there's a million things going on, where I have to be connected all the time. Because why? Because I might miss something. There are so many things that are worth missing.
There's so many good reasons to miss them.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, but even the art of stillness or whatever in a storm. I mean, this morning I woke up and I'm a public person, you know, and people follow me on Facebook, and I know that what's Steve going to say about what happened yesterday in Washington, you know, at the Capitol, right? And so I don't want to say anything. You know what I mean? I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm mystified, you know, I'm a little frightened, I'm certainly staggered, you know. Do I have any wisdom at all? In terms of solving the mystery, no. And I'm thinking about, God, I can't say nothing, you know, and if I put up an opinion, I'm only inviting acrimony, no matter what I say, you know. And I put up a song, Psalm 62, wait alone in stillness, O my soul. And that's all I could think of. But again, so I engaged a couple 1,000-year-old poem, you know, from someone who could not even have begun to imagine what this world looks like now, right?
Yeah.
Culturally, technologically, you know, like could not even there was no sci-fi back then that could imagine what we're living in now, and yet that resonates so deeply.
And the big frightening themes are in common, right? Like that poet didn't have to imagine imminent destruction.
Right.
They didn't have to imagine a power play that might alter the political landscape at a moment. They didn't have to imagine nepotism. They didn't have to imagine patriarchy, whatever, like
right.
they were living in all those things.
Yeah.
And they end up in this same essential spiritual place where they're saying, no, the thing that I can do in the middle of all of this, in the face of all of this, is I can just park it in the middle of this mystery. I can just shut up and stop moving and let the mystery be with me.
Right.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis is, sorry, I was reading Lewis the other day, and he's talking about the idea of beauty. And I mean, Lewis is, among other things, a Neoplatonist. So he's always kind of like, the thing is not the thing, right? It's always the shadow of the thing. Yeah. And so he's talking about that, though, how we see something, or we experience something, or we hear something, or we love someone, or we have this human experience, and we're like, wow, this is so powerful and profound, and it centers my world. And what am I going to call it? And we can call it whatever we want. And he's talking about beauty. So it's like, we can call it beauty. But if we go and we apprehend the thing, we will discover that it is not beauty.
Right.
That it's something that we named that way because it points that way.
Yes.
Not because we should stop there.
Right. Like, well, I mean, this is a little bit of a different, I hope I'm not taking this out of context, but N.T. Wright, I think he says something like this, like all language about God, for example, let's say all language about beauty, or whatever, is not the thing itself. It's only a pointer. It's only a signpost. So if I spell F-I-S-H, you immediately know what that's pointing towards. You'd be rather mistaken to think that those letters, or the sound of those letters, is a fish. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And then, of course, whatever you think that's pointing towards is pretty dependent on your experience, right? So what I just said, F-I-S-H, is going to mean something different to a child with their new goldfish tank than to a marine biologist. Yeah. Or someone who's allergic to fish, who die if they eat it, right? So, you know what I mean? Like, so so your own experience, like, so these things they can only ever be pointers. And I think sometimes, especially in the modern world, the arrogance of thinking that somehow our pointers are the things themselves, I think that's where we're getting so much trouble. Whether it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, but they're not. They're signposts.
So how can that help us, Steve, if we are looking for a way to feel centered in our spirituality, centered in God, centered in our practices, our spiritual practices, in a season like this?
Well, I think there's a couple things you can say, and again, I'm just taking a stab at it. Like, nobody should think I'm an expert, but even the word religion, I mean, I just find it interesting, and it's not new to me, but is from religare, religament. It's about reconnecting things that have been dismembered. So, I mean, I like to even think of when Jesus says, when you do this, remember me. Well, the opposite, the way I think of it, of remember isn't forget, but dismember. Mm-hmm. To remember, to put things together. And so I think, to begin with, when we talk about even what is spirituality, it's religaring. It's the reconnecting of things that have been dismembered. If that's true, and if all these things like F-I-S-H means something different to you than they do to me, then I need you for a fuller understanding of what that is. Right? I should never, ever, ever be satisfied with my experience of what that's pointing to. Because it's not the thing. It's only my experience of it. So I should be quite interested in what that means to you, if I even want to know a bit fuller what the thing is pointing to. So there's not only a suggested or a necessary humility, but it should also suggest and necessitate curiosity. and a little bit of joy and anticipation of learning something about having our experience filled out, more. Now, yes, I know I can tell you something about fish, right? That's really, really true, but I can also tell you that is only just, right? And so what do you know?